is happening, people of the interwebs? Welcome back to another episode of the Jesus and Coffee Show. I'm Todd Frazier, your host, as always, and today I've got another fantastic guest in the studio. My friend Teddy Omondi comes in and he talks about growing up in Kenya and then how he was converted, and it's a fascinating story about how he decided to become a pastor and then moved here because of a girl. And let's talk about it. Teddy Omondi on Jesus and Coffee. Teddy, welcome to the studio, buddy.
Thank you, man.
I'm so glad that you're here.
I know, yeah. This is good.
We've been talking about doing something for a while.
Yeah.
And finally, we're just you're like, well, let's just put it on the calendar.
Yeah, right? Yeah, we got to do it because with the way, you never know, with 2020, man, you got to put in the calendar or things are just you just never know. So you got to try to get those right in there and get things going. Otherwise, it'll never happen.
Absolutely. And so I'm glad we did this. Yeah. I'm thinking back through, we've known each other quite a while.
Yeah.
Like, because when you came to the States in 2002?
2002.
That was the year that we got married.
I came in 2003.
2003, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, 2003.
But you visited in 2002 because we met you before Tammy and I went away.
Yeah, so that was 2003. I came. That's when I visited.
Okay.
It was fall of 2003.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then
yeah,
left for a semester, went back to finish my undergrad, then came back 2004, got married, started seminary, started working at Friends Church, Brea.
Mm-hmm. And the reason you came was a girl.
Was a girl, man. The girls make you do things, right?
The girls make you do things.
The girls make you do things. That's
the most truest statement ever.
Yeah. So I met Emily at she was in a student exchange program. Came to my college in Kenya, and so just through that we're able to connect. And it's one of those I never knew where America was. You know, you saw movies, you heard about it, but you just don't really have much of a concept because you know I lived in the bushes, man. So you know
that's crazy. And you're where you grew up.
Yeah.
To where your kids are growing up.
Yeah.
Like how is that?
Oh man, that's it's a whole different world. As in, you know, like in my village, you know, when the sunset goes down, you gotta be inside. There's no street lights. It's dark. There's no lights, and even the lights we use are like kerosene. Like
lamps, literally.
Yeah.
Like
so, you pour in a little kerosene and a little light, and you light it up, and there was no electricity, nothing like that. Yeah, so we walked bare feet. Right now, I feel like I look at my shoe claws and like, what is happening? I don't. Yeah, it's just one of those things that, you know, we would walk to school without shoes, and we were just used to that. That was life.
Yeah,
yeah. And some days you didn't even know where food was gonna come from. You know, when you talk about praying about your daily bread, you know, there are definitely those moments when people actually do not know when and where their next meal is going to come from. So being in those situations, so it's very interesting to look at my life even right now and see how far my life has changed, and just to look at my kids, you know, they have lots of choices. Like, you know, come on, eat your breakfast. I don't wanna. Yeah, so that's really interesting to think about, just even where I grew up, and you know, and there are still people that live in that life even to today.
Do you feel like that has prepared you in a way, not necessarily for ministry, but just for a perspective in what you do, being a pastor, leading a congregation?
Yeah, I think it really helps me to also be in a way a good steward of what God has given me in many ways, not just financially, but with people. As I was reading something today, and somebody made a really nice quote, which I really resonated with. Like, leadership is a responsibility; it's not a reward. Yeah, so I like that, right? You can tweet that.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's a responsibility. And that's when I look at just with my upbringing and just with not having a whole lot of things around, you know, and all that. And I think now with the role of being a pastor, you have people you're shepherding, you know, you have lots of people that are actually looking up to you for spiritual guidance and direction. and then all that, and then you also have the church finances that you have to, in a way, manage, and so there's a trust there, and we know how that goes sometimes. And so I think my upbringing, in a way, has made me be aware of the resources around in people, in money, in the talents of people, in the time, and all those kind of stuff. So I think it's definitely, for me, it was it was a great opportunity to be able to now look at where we are and not take it for granted because of just how God has brought us this far. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot that's a lot in my life experience that has prepared me for what I'm doing now. Yeah.
Being that's a huge, as a pastor, I think that's a huge attribute to say being a good steward is from my upbringing. Because I think there's a lot of people that grew up in America in a situation not similar, but on the lower end. And they're like, I got to get as much as I can.
Yeah.
And so it could go either way.
It could. Yeah, it could go either way. And I think, and in many cases too, I think it's being able to understand, as I said, like even with leadership is a responsibility. Because when you think about it too, and in whichever capacity you are as a leader, we are all leaders in some, whether in a family or in your group of friends. There's always some sense of leadership that you're always a part of. And so when you think about it, for me, I have this concept of always thinking, desiring to honor God in all that I do and say, because at the end of the day, I think leaders, man, we're held to a higher standard.
Absolutely.
And that's just kind of how it is, right? We've been given this responsibility, and so how we play those cards, man, is gonna determine just a lot of things. And so because my decisions are affecting not just me, it's affecting a whole lot of other people. So if I don't take that seriously and make sure that I'm actually paying attention to what is happening, and make sure that the decisions that I make are things that are going to help other people flourish, other than diminish what God is trying to do in their lives. I feel like even my own life will not be fruitful, because I think it's about the other person, and I think that concept of always thinking about the other person, empathy, right? And I think that is really important because we can be selfish, and we can desire to just I grew up poor, man. I have the opportunity now. I'm in America. I have this opportunity. There's the resources around me. Let me build my empire. I can choose to do that. But then when you think about it, at the end of the day, I can build my empire, but that empire is going to just be a worldly empire, right? And I think I always encourage my congregation is, man, think about eternity. That when you invest in a person, you are investing in eternity. You're not just investing in life here. When you're investing in a person, you're investing in life, in something that is eternal. And that is what we should be striving for, because everything else is going to crumble. Just like 2020 has shown us. Everything else.
2020 is the start.
It is the start, right? And then 2020 happened. I was planning this, I was doing that, and then 2020 happened.
That's right.
Yeah, but
I love that when you invest in a person, you're investing in eternity. That's a huge concept, and I think as that being like a mantra to live by as a Christian, I think that makes so much sense, and it simplifies everything.
It does,
because there's so much. I mean, we were just talking before the show about social media and digital technology and all those kind of things, and there's a lot, and it's overwhelming. So if you can just break it down and say, look, I'm going to invest in people, and that is an investment in eternity. I think that's a huge thing. Like you can tweet that out.
Yeah, you can.
You tweet it out right now. Just give Teddy credit. Teddy credit. So something I'm curious about, did you grow up like reading the Bible, going to church in Kenya? Is that?
No, so I started my family was kind of grew up Catholic, and so, but we weren't like diligent with that. It's kind of, they call them the CEO, the Christmas, Easter, and other. You pick one of those Sundays and fulfill your 3 Sundays a year. So we weren't really as engaged with that. And so I didn't really know what, it was kind of one of those, hey, my parents go there, so let me also do that. But something really interesting happened in my whole family, basically. And so it started with a pastor moving into the village. from the city, came into the village and started a church. And so when he moved there, actually, what happens normally in Kenya, a lot of high schools are boarding schools. So you'd go for a couple months and stay there, hang out there for a couple months, and then come back home. So what had happened is I was in a boarding school, and so as I was in high school, here in the village, my dad and my mom had an encounter with this pastor, and so they gave their life to just kind of following Jesus, and this decided this is the route they wanted to take. And here in high school, a dude just stops me, found me. I was just sitting by myself and just kind of watching guys who were playing soccer. And so he comes and he started talking to me about a relationship with Jesus. And so I thought through it, and so I decided to give my life to Christ. So it kind of separate, occasions and times. My parents over here in the village are, deciding to be serious about their faith. And here I'm in high school. I'm also hearing about this. And so that's kind of, I want to say I was 14 when I made that decision to follow Christ.
And it was independent. So your parents were in the village. Yeah. They made a decision. And you're at school and you made a decision. Independent of each other.
Independent of each other.
And then you come home.
So I come home and then my mom tells me, oh, by the way, we now go to this church. Like, what church? Like, oh yeah, there's a church that was started down here by a pastor that moved into the village. I'm like, oh, all right, then I guess we can.
That's convenient.
That. Yeah, that's convenient. So I go, but I was kind of still a little skeptical of this whole deal because I was just, in high school, boarding school.
Everything.
You know everything.
That's a universal youth thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Where you live, you know everything at 14.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was still kind of like hesitant with the faith. I made the decision, but I think, it was still kind of, I still want to enjoy my, my youth, whatever that was, just, and so what I did when we went to church, I would like sit way in the back, like the last seat, and just didn't really want to interact with a whole lot of people. So I remember vividly one Sunday I was sitting and the pastor was talking about baptism and just really committing your life to Jesus. And I had a voice and he goes, it's time. Teddy, I think you need to do this. So I looked back. I'm like,
you literally did.
I looked back, forgetting that there was a wall behind me. So I actually looked back and like, it's a wall.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so, man, from that day, and I think that evening I got baptized. And I just really, from there on, I just committed, my life to be able to follow Jesus. Yeah. So I even went back to school the next semester. I was telling my friends, man, I gotta really live for Christ, because I had made the decision, but high school still doing crazy things. And
you didn't have a lot of foundation. You had the CEO experience, but you didn't really have a foundation of
I didn't really understand a whole lot of that, what it meant to actually give your life to Christ. You gotta make some decisions to actually show that you're actually living your life according to this call, being a follower of Jesus. Yeah, and so when I went back, they didn't believe me. I was a little rowdy. I was a rowdy kid in high school.
Come on.
So my friends didn't even believe that actually change had happened in my life. So they started seeing me going to in a high school. We had like a Christian union organization. So every evening we'd meet for worship and all that. And I would go there and they would look at me like, really?
Who's this Teddy?
Yeah. What happened to this guy? And so I would do that. And so that's kind of how my journey started. Yeah. And it was interesting is that as I went to these evening meetings, that's how I actually started feeling a call to ministry in that. They would sing, a guy would start leading singing, and in my heart I was like, I think we can do better than this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that's how I kind of started, even with like worship ministry. I just went to the leader and said, I think I can lead some of these songs.
Yeah.
And so that's how I started leading worship.
And then fast forward like 8 years, then we started playing worship together with Art at FCC.
Right.
And then you became the worship pastor.
I became the worship pastor there.
And so at what point in there did you decide, you're in Kenya and you say, I think I can lead this and do this better. Yeah. At what point did you think, oh, maybe a pastor, like was it before you came here or was it?
Okay. So the pastoral ministry, that has been something that has always been in my I knew I was going to be in pastoral ministry. So in Kenya with worship leading, that wasn't, back then. I feel so old. Back then was
we
like,
are, dude.
yeah,
It's weird.
late
We
90s,
are.
yeah, late 90s, early 2000s there.
Yeah.
Worship leading was like a career you could really pursue, like in Kenya. It was kind of, just a volunteer role in many cases, especially a lot of the churches was really smaller churches, and even the bigger churches, they wouldn't really hire worship pastor or something like that. So in my heart, I remember even at age 14, 15, just after I'd given my life to Christ, I have a friend of mine, his name is David. And so what we would do is he would invite me to go walk around in the villages and just preach the gospel to people.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we just go from house to house and just tell people about Jesus. And that was always one of those really fascinating things, because I remember so many people we actually prayed for to receive Jesus. Funny incidents. One time we were going to one of the houses. The guy didn't want anything to do with us, so he let his dogs out. So, yeah. Now this is one of those things like, well, all right, God, we either gonna just be chewed up with these dogs or something miraculous is gonna happen.
Yeah.
But God was gracious enough. He knew that we still had things to do in this world. So the dogs just came and sniffed us and just turned around and left.
And wow. Okay,
Yeah.
like, oh, they got Jesus. I'm out.
Yeah, they smelled Jesus, man. But yeah, so we started doing that, and so we would go out and we would do that, and then in the evenings we'd sit down and kind of process just what happened through the day. We pray for people, we like pray for sick people, we pray for people with just different things going on. We're like 14, 15. Kids running around the village. We didn't know. We didn't even know a whole lot of the Bible. We knew that the Romans 3:16 and the Roman road. There are a couple of verses. We are all sinners in need of grace, and all the wages of sin is death, and all that.
Yeah.
And so and John 3:16, those familiar verses, and that's all we knew. And so we would just go and do that.
What was the culture when you would talk to these people? Are they like, they've never heard of this before, or they're like, oh, I kind of know what you're talking about?
Yeah, a lot of people have heard what they're talking about. Actually, during the colonization of Kenya, so when the British were there, so there's a lot of churches that the Anglican, the Catholics, the Lutheran, all those high churches and all that had really, in a way, majority of Africa, especially when I say maybe southern Kenya, so Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania going south, that was mostly a British colony.
Okay.
So we're exposed to a lot of the Christian faith. So most people had heard it. The challenges, I think, in the village was kind of almost a mix of traditional religion and Christianity. So people can kind of still dabble in both.
You can mix it up.
You can kind of mix it up.
What's traditional religion?
It's just kind of spiritism, belief in
Okay.
Yeah.
The gods,
small
g gods.
Yeah, like I think, like in my tribe, the sun was a big thing. Like the sun, if the sun came up in the morning, that was to them, that was God. God is looking at us.
Down on them.
All those kind of things. So the sun was like that. So that those type of, so there's always, and that's why I think there's always form of spirituality in everybody.
Sure.
Because there's that, what is
every
that?
day there's a miraculous sun that comes up out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Right?
And where does it
breathe.
go? Right.
There's a tree. Like all of the things that we take for granted. That when all you have is that, and you're like, how does this work?
Right.
Like I just think about, without the knowledge that we have of biology and how things grow and stuff like that. Right. You just look at something with no information. You're like, that is a miracle.
Yeah,
Which it really is.
It is.
It comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so just that mix of religion and all that. So people are kind of aware. A majority of people are aware. So when we kind of try to explain the gospel to them, it made sense because there's already some seeds that were planted there in many cases and all that. So we would do that often, and so we would talk in the evening and chat, and we would just pray. Man, remember we would spend days, hours. Sometimes we'd go to the church and pray all night.
What?
Yeah, so my friend and I would just pray all night, just really praying, God, what do you want? We were young. As kids. Yeah, and it's something too, I think my pastor in the village that really had helped us to understand, like prayer was important. So he encouraged that a lot. And I think, and it's a common thing in Kenya. In a lot of churches, they have this overnight prayer. So we'd go there around 9 p.m. and stay till 6. And it's just
praying
and singing. Somebody will share a testimony, or somebody will share a word from God and all this kind of stuff, and just really focus a lot on prayer. And so that was incredible. And then we would talk. It's like, man, maybe one of these days, then we're going to be pastors.
Wow.
Yeah. So, 14, 15, we'll be pastors one of these days. And I think, we're going to start churches, or we're going to be a pastor of a church. So through that's always been in my mind.
Gotcha.
And it's as I was leading worship in different churches, as I was being a part, going to college where Emily and I met, I was involved a lot in ministry, and I knew that one day I was going to be a pastor. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how it's going to shape, the shape is going to take. But that was just something that I knew that God was going to, one day, I think one day this is going to happen. Yeah, so it just kind of been process. It definitely has been a process, coming to the States and connecting with friends, community, church in Brea, and started there as an intern, actually, with Art and all those guys you mentioned, playing in the worship team. And then
I thought about that this morning. I'm like, man, what's Art doing these days? Like,
right.
That was like just total blast from the past.
Yeah.
Like, that was a great time.
Right.
We were just part of the band, hanging out.
Part of the band, just hanging out. I would play my guitar in the back, and and all that. Yeah, and so just the process, that, and of course, then Art leaves, and then I take over that worship ministry there at Brea, and just trying to navigate through that.
Right.
Yeah, and I always knew there was something coming.
Yeah.
I knew there was, I love leading worship, and it's one of the things I miss even now with being a lead pastor. I think I love just being able to lead worship and in those ways. But just kind of, and I think every time I would even preach, sometimes I would have opportunities to preach at Brea, and people would come and say, "You need to think about starting a church."
Well, I was just as you're talking about the worship leader thing, and I'm like, I remember turning to Tammy when you would preach every once in a while.
Yeah.
I'd be like, man, Teddy is bringing it.
Yeah.
Like, wake up, people. Like, I feel like it was always that, do you not hear what I'm saying? Right. Like, that is and so there was always that feel from you that I was like, he's going to be teaching at some point. At what capacity? And,
right.
And you now have had the opportunity to plant a church, yet you planted a church and then COVID hit, and it's like, do you replant? What do you? So what's that process been like? From you had a kind of a normal church plant start the end of last year.
Well, we did. We started. So the whole process of just like so we had a launch team, and so because we're gonna meet at a school, we wanted to be there a couple weeks. The official launch was February 9th. So we wanted to be there early enough to just kind of know the community a little bit. So we started meeting some weeks in December just in preparation. But officially, our church was 5 weeks old.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 weeks before everything shut down. And so, so I tell people, well, we have a 5-week-old kid we're trying to try to help grow and so it's been crazy. It's been quite a ride.
Well, and the thing that we talked about really early after the COVID thing hit and the shutdown is like, you guys are like, the field has kind of been leveled for church planners in the past, where it's like I'm competing against these these traditional churches that have a long-standing community.
Yeah.
But now everybody has to go online. And so many of the traditional, I've been dealing with a couple of different churches throughout this whole situation that are like trying to figure out online.
Right.
Like, so everybody's trying to figure out online,
Right.
Which have you seen that has been a positive thing for you?
I think,
sense?
In some sense. And one of the things we did was one thing that I love technology stuff too. And it was right from the beginning. I made sure that we were going to be ready to stream from the day one. So in a way, we were prepared. We just, and as you said, it felt like it's been a level ground because, sure, we don't have the thousands of dollars for great production, but who really needs all that?
But all the pastors were in their living room with their kids running around the background for the first couple weeks.
Exactly. Pets running around,
That's right.
Pets being part of the service and all those kind of stuff. And so, and
I
think
praise Jesus too.
I'm sure they have a way of doing that. I'm sure only God hears that. But
Did you hear, I'm sorry, sidetrack. Yeah. Did you see that there were Catholic churches that were blessing pets in drive-by services last week? They were driving their pets by, and the priests were doing their Catholic blessing on their pets.
Yeah, that's been something that
Is that a thing
it
for a
is
long
thing
time?
for a long time.
I had no idea.
Really?
I
Yeah,
had
there's
no
a
idea.
church I know also in Brea that does that. They have a sign, the blessing of the animals.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I'll take a picture and send it to you.
Send it to
yeah.
me.
Yeah, it is a thing.
That is a thing. Okay.
It is a thing.
Okay.
So, yeah. Maybe
So
I need
pets cry out.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe we need to start blessing our pets. Maybe that's the problem that our pets have. We haven't been blessing
Maybe
them.
that's it. the pets that are, if your pet is not behaving, they need a blessing.
They need a blessing. Yeah.
So you've started a church, and now you're the lead.
Yeah.
You're the lead in a new season when people are scrambling to know what to do, whether it's in their family, whether it's in their job, or they've lost their job, and then you're trying to preach the good news.
Right.
How have you dealt with that? How have you managed that?
And I think that's the beauty of the gospel, right? It's in these moments, it's in the chaotic, it's in the uncertainty, it's in the doubts, the fear, or just the chaos that we see all around that feel like we have a phrase I think that's always on our live stream that says Jesus is better.
Amen.
In all these situations. And so I think that's the message we try to convey. And I think it resonates with people because everything else, man, falls apart. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything else falls apart. And so I think we've just been trying to be consistent with that. We knew it was going to be, especially, it's a church plant. You're trying to get many people to be a part of what God is doing. And, and then now you can't really go walk on people's doors and say, hey, I'm here to invite you, or I'm here to tell you about Jesus and all that. So for the most part, everything was kind of online, and everything was everybody had to try to be creative in how to reach people. And, with technology, I think that's, there's definitely good things about it. And that's one of the things that I think with COVID, it's forced a lot of our churches to be very intentional with online presence. Because a lot of people are there now, and a lot of people are spending time online. So for us, it's just been how can we leverage that and just make sure that in our simplest way that we were able to do that. So, streaming from our living room, we had a small system enough to be able to enable us to do that, is streaming from the living room. And I think it's been good because then we were able to, even through that, just to create that stability. In as much as we're still a young church, but there was something about just that continuity of that and just, continuing to do that. And through that, and I'm sure a lot of other churches experienced this, the viewership was, went way up because everybody was out there.
Right.
So, everybody was watching, everybody's looking for something online. And I think in many cases for us as a church, we just focused on the good news of Jesus, whichever way. And with all the other things that have come up as well. I think at the end of the day, man, let's preach Jesus. Let's preach the gospel. Because all these other things, I think in many cases, they're just noise.
Yep.
That will pass away. But I think in many cases that if we stick to the good news and just stick to God's word, that brings hope. And that's what people need, right? That's what people need right now. And just that love for one another and just always thinking about the other person. In many cases, I think that helps us in ways that we can't even imagine. And that's what I think focusing on that has been great, so that then I don't have to worry so much about all the other things. Mm-hmm. The message is there. The world needs the message. We know that Jesus is the answer for our world. And so if we can find opportunities to be able to share that, let's do that diligently. Yeah, and so as a church, as we even in the midst of all this, we've seen just being able to be in a stable place. And God keeps bringing people, and God keeps bringing people every week now. And even having found a place to be able to meet outside, that has given us a good momentum to be able to continue to do that. Yeah. So it's been fascinating to take a look at that and just to see. And people are longing for that, man. It's for the connection, the human connection, with masks and all that craziness. It's just been great to be able to also regather again because human beings were made for community.
Amen.
Yeah, so human beings were made for community. So however you can find that community, you need to seek it out.
Yep.
I think it's important. And so we're grateful. It's not what we anticipated, you know.
No, it's not what anybody anticipated.
Yeah, right.
You guys are like, it's just a weird.
It is a weird, right? You know, all those pastors like Vision 2020. This is the perfect year. You know, it's like, we can, Somebody, I think I was reading a meme, and somebody said, all those pastors that prophesied that 2020 was gonna be my year. I want my money back.
I want my money back. Oh man, I love it, Teddy. Thanks so much for coming in.
Of course,
I think
man.
that you invest in people.
Yeah.
You invest in eternity.
Absolutely,
and have empathy for people because
absolutely.
Jesus was all about it.
Yeah, and I think many people have said this. You know, everybody's fighting a battle. It could be silently. It could be visible. You could probably know what's going on. So yeah, be empathetic. You know, as I think your sign said, love your neighbor.
Absolutely,
that is what it's all about, right? Just care for people, man.
Yep.
If we're always thinking about the other person, I think that's the best posture.
Amen.
Yeah. So thanks for the time and thanks for inviting me to.
We have to have you back in
the time
and talk about what happens post COVID.
Yes. Can't wait for that. That should be fun, right?
I'd love it.
Throwing race and
we could do it. We'll do a whole thing. We'll do a whole thing. Let's go do it in Kenya though.
Yeah.
Let's go do it in Kenya.
Let's do it. It's cheap now. We can fly there.
Why not?
Why not?
That's right. All right, man. Thanks for coming.
All right, of course, man. That was great. All right.